And here we are for another Tuesday training. I'm so excited to be with you guys today. Welcome to Tuesday training for practitioners, manual and movement practitioners alike. I am delighted to be here today. I've been thick in it, doing some nose down work. So I love to come out. Hey, Lori, love to come out and talk some client work. Been answering a few messages here today, which always also enlivens me, which is lovely. So welcome to those of you who are here live. Lori, thanks for being on camera. Appreciate you being here as always. We're going to wrap up today on your client case study from week. So thank you for being here again live so we can do that. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. If you're watching on the replay, also appreciate you being here every week to have your cup filled. That is my intention each week, to fill your cup so that you can continue to do amazing work in the world. If you've not met me before, I'm Gina Schatz. I am both a manual and movement practitioner. I've been doing it for the whole get and caboodle, man. It's been 31 years and I'm just feel like I'm just getting started. I'm having a ball. During my clinical path of the last 30 years, I developed the Schatz method, which is a method for alleviating pain at the source. And I train other movement and manual practitioners in that method so that you can do the same thing and then get back to the work that you were doing with your client before they came in with this thing that was in the way. So I love it. I'm also eager and happy to announce our masterclass, which is coming up at the end of this month. We usually do a spring masterclass each year. And this year it's on February 28th, 11 Eastern. We're maximizing the lever system. So if you've been here for the last few weeks, talking muscles, movement, lever, what's contracting, what's not contracting, what do I do about it? How do I get it to contract? Why isn't it contracting? How come there's pain in this muscle? Is it contracting? Is that what's causing the pain? All that, we're going to be talking about that at our masterclass at the end of the month. Thanks for dropping that link in the chat, Lori. I appreciate that. Hey, Anna, welcome.
Hey,
So
Anna.
yeah, please do grab your seats for that masterclass if that's something that you feel will support you. There will be replays available for lifetime access if you happen to already have a client scheduled at that time. I totally get it. Unless we're meeting at the middle of the night, it's billable hours. So that's why I do offer all of our training for lifetime replay. So you're welcome to grab that seat and we'll send you the replay if you can't make it live. But live is always fun, which is why we're here on Tuesdays live to play together and explore the world of practitionership, if you will. So I'm happy to see you all here. Last week we talked about, we put Lori on the hot seat. Lori put herself on the hot seat. Let's be honest. Lori put herself on the hot seat last week, and it was hot. It was hot for us because we learned
It
a
was a
ton.
little toasty on this end. It was a little toasty.
It was a little toasty, but we learned so much. And Lori, before we dive into the specifics of what we're going to talk about in that case study, I would love, putting you on the hot seat again, I would love if you would share what came to you from allowing yourself to be uncomfortable. Some reason I'm asking is a lot of us don't want to be uncomfortable, right? None of us does. Like no one's willing to be like, yeah, I'll be uncomfortable for the whole day today for my betterment and upliftment. Most of us don't willingly go there. So what is it? And there's always benefit. There's the price of being uncomfortable, but then there's way more value than the price is paid. And we tend to overlook that and then forget that momentary discomfort can actually lead to great gains. So would you be willing to share with us, Lori, what was the takeaway for you after having been in said hot seat last week? What's the value add?
Right. Anytime I willingly go on the hot seat, which is kind of all the time now, right? Because I'm like, all right, I want a next level. I want to really get this. So I get to hot seat all the time, all the time. And it doesn't does it get as hot each time? It'll ease out, I'm sure. Um, so what came about last week from the hot seat is that my intake was incomplete. Like I'd seen him a few times and every time it's a new time that I see him and I get to do a thorough intake. So that was what was presented to me last time very clearly. Like get the dates. Did this happen before that? Was that before this? Even going way back right,
Mhm.
right into when he herniated his disc, if you guys remember that. That was years ago.
Mhm.
And I I glossed over it until now. So right after I was hot seated, I had another client that I did intake. I let her talk, I let her talk, I let her talk, I let her talk. And then I went back in and filled in all the gaps. And then I went back in again. I'm like, did I get everything that I wanted to do? And it takes as long as it takes. And it's super valuable to spend more time, to spend as much time as needed to get all the questions answered. So
Mhm.
that was my huge uh aha.
Okay, beautiful. So that was an aha for you. And what
Mhm.
was the value for being uncomfortable?
Oh, well, I was uncomfortable for a half an hour or whatever it was. And then I'm like, oh, and now the payoff is that I learned all of these things that are gonna move me forward. So
Mm.
I get to be uncomfortable for 15 minutes, a half an hour, whatever.
Mhm.
Like the trade-off is fine. Like it's a safe, I know everybody here. I'm in a safe
Mhm.
space.
Yeah.
Nobody's judging. We're all just trying to figure it out.
For sure. Yeah. And how many, I don't know, clinical hours or years do you think the value from what you learned will pay off in dividends?
Oh my goodness.
Hmm.
Invaluable. I can't
Yeah.
even put a number because it's every time that I had seat myself or step into that, invaluable.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. I love it for you. I love that you were brave enough to share it with all of us. And that next level that's a real thing. Like we use that
Mhm.
inside of our mastery track and everywhere in my community. The next level is the next level, which means not
Mhm.
where you're at currently comfortably seated. It's somewhere outside of that comfort zone. And so,
Mhm.
with love, I'm sharing that poignancy with all of us here today because y'all are here committedly, consistently because you want to go somewhere. So it's outside of your comfort zone that you want to go. So just like we get to remember that. And then, Lori, your example of how to execute that with grace is really valuable for all of us too. So thank you for that. Welcome, Laura. I saw you pop in. Cheryl, nice to see you. Gary and Rhonda, I didn't officially say hello to you yet. Happy to have you all here. We're going to wrap up the final from Lori's case study last week. We got into lots of good discovery, and we're going to wrap that up, and then I'll have plenty of time for Q&A. I want to highlight one more thing too. So we're kind of like in big concept revelations here at the very beginning of the hour. The big high level concepts are you get to be uncomfortable to solve big problems, and the discomfort is temporary. The payoff is legendary. It lasts for the rest of your career. So be willing to be uncomfortable, be willing to ask a question, be willing to not have the answer, be willing to learn something along the way that you forgot that you were supposed to, like be willing to be uncomfortable. And the other piece that I want to really highlight here is we were focused on Lori's client treatment plan last week. We were all focused, we're all participating, we're all in it, we're all wise and knowledgeable as practitioners. And in the hour's time, we didn't resolve it to the final. And the reason for that is not because we're not talented, not because of a lack. The reason is because we get to know more anatomy before we solve complex issues. The complex issue is not the holding point. It's the gaps in our anatomy knowledge that prevent us from being able to solve it. And then the strategic thinking that comes after the knowing of the anatomy. Like, what do you do with that anatomy is what comes next. And I talk about that all the time from the very beginning of our mastery program right up through the end and way after graduation. So for those of you who are here in mastery, you've heard me say this before. If you haven't joined us in mastery, I want to let you know that's the key. That's the key. We get to know enough anatomy to be able to solve the problem. The complexity of what the client comes with is not really a stopping point. It's not understanding what they're saying, not understanding the implications of the details of their history, their physical history. It's the gap in the knowledge that makes it tough to solve. Not that you're missing a special tool that you just didn't take a CE workshop for yet on a weekend. That's not it. I promise you. I promise you. Welcome to Val. I'm going to change your name, Val. Welcome, Christina. I'm glad you guys are here. It's so great to have you all here. Okay, so before we dive into the recap from Lori's client case study that we're going to final today, does anyone have any thoughts or questions before we go there? Anybody coming in hot off? Anna?
Can I quick ask? Can I quick ask? I was exploring your site. This is kind of off topic. I hope that's okay.
That's totally fair. There's no off topic.
Do you have mastery classes? Is that different from the mastery program that you speak about?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And I appreciate all of your questions, Cheryl, always. And it helps me know what it's like on the other end. Like I know all the content in my website, but I don't know what it's like for you to be perusing it. So it's actually really valuable for me to have that feedback from you. So thank you. Don't ever hold back on that. One other time I attempted to answer this, and it is that we have our academy, which has all the courses in it, which are all evergreen courses. And there's over 20 courses. And all of those courses are anatomy based, anatomy that I know mastery practitioners need to have to utilize my method. I also happen to think those anatomy courses are courses that all practitioners need to have, my own biased opinion. Those are all pre-recorded courses. You can take them a la carte at any time. The Mastery Practitioner Track is a year-long program, and it's live with me. And we meet every week along the way. And you also get all of those anatomy courses in that program.
Okay. So I see that there's one being offered February 28th, like a mastery class.
It's master. Oh, I see. The word master and mastery is in there. Okay. I'm hearing now where the confusion is. Thanks, Cheryl. It's a master class, meaning that we take a concentrated period of time and master a topic on anatomy. It's not so different than what we do on Tuesday trainings, except it's kind of casual here, and I'm not presenting you with slides and worksheets and things like that. But a master class is a focused topic that I pour into you from beginning to end on the topic, and I teach you for the hour. Or actually, it's always a master class is always longer than an hour. This master class at the end of February is a 90-minute master class. We're only talking about the lever system and how that is present in pain and what we miss in our knowing about that lever system to resolve pain. Okay. So that's a standalone masterclass, okay. Never been taught before, hasn't been recorded yet. It'll eventually end up in the academy because we'll record it so that you can have a replay for it. But that every year I try to do something fresh and new.
Okay,
and that's what that is.
That answered my question. Thank you.
Okay,
can I ask when that class is?
Yeah, it's February 28th, 11 Eastern, and there's always a replay because, like I said at our start of today, I know those, unless we're meeting in the middle of the night to train, those are billable hours. So all the courses are available on replay, and you'll have access to them for a lifetime.
Gary, I think you jumped in later. The link is in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
They jumped in after you posted, Lori. I don't think they can see the chat actually. Would you be willing to just repost what you posted?
Yeah. I'll do that right now. So once again, okay, logistics. Yep, for sure. I'll do that.
If it's a Zoom thing. Okay, Anna?
Lori, I was going to ask, in an hour appointment, hi, how long, I know that you said, my question is, how long does the thorough intake take? And you're probably going to answer as long as it takes. But I don't want you to answer that way.
Okay, how would you like me to answer, Anna?
If it's an hour session, and they're expecting some potential resolution, where's that balance between a thorough intake and then processing that into their body?
Right. Absolutely. Oh, such a good question. Yeah, I'm playing with this actually now. I'm realizing an hour isn't enough time. How I balance it though, the intake takes as long as the intake. If it takes all of it, then I also ask them, what are your goals for our session, right? So that I have that. If their goals are like, I need this, this, and this, and I want to resolve all of this, Okay, it's going to take longer than one, even if I had an hour. I mean, for me right now, it's going to take a little bit longer.
Mhm.
If it's an hour session, I get through what I can get through and make sure that there's always value in what I have to offer them. And if there's something that's left, a misalignment that I didn't get to or whatever, I message that really clearly. You have a lot going on, and we get to address that again. So it's just, I think, Gina, you just said it about, how did you word? You've said it before, like, we're complex beings and we come to the table with X, Y, and Z. And sometimes it takes more than one session to get to resolve it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was
I
like,
mean,
heck yeah.
yeah, it always takes more than one session. And and I'm going to also offer an answer here. I know you have a part B. I can tell by your body language because I know you like the back of my hand, my friend. I want to also share with you in the mastery program, 2 weeks from now, you do have a training coming up with me on the architecture of a session. So we walk through exactly how to time it and pace it, and what do you do now that you know how to soap chart? What do you do with that time, and how do you structure a session so that you do create results? And that's the mechanics of it. The bigger answer that I want you to hear to your question, which I heard as, how much of an intake do you do to create results? How much time do you allot to each one to guarantee the results? Without a proper intake, you can't guarantee results because you don't know what you're working with. So there gets to be a considered amount of structure around, how do I create what I need to create in time and solution, because I can't go blind without this information, because then I'm going blind. Meaning
Which
I'm
is what,
walking into, yeah, go ahead, Laura.
well, it's kind of like the case study last week, right? I didn't have enough information. And the results, when he left, I was like, oh, shoot, I didn't resolve it because I didn't have enough information.
Right. Right. And that's the delicate balance, right? That's what you get to work out, which we can talk about forever. But until you're implementing, those of you who are in a mastery program, you know that word, you're probably never going to want to hear the word again. But until you're implementing and you're out there doing it, you don't really know how it works out. You just have notes in your notebook that tells you do this, do that, but you got to be out there trying, right? What I just had a conversation with a practitioner today who was like, oh my goodness, I didn't remember that I knew, and now I didn't do it. And no wonder I didn't get the right, because until you're out there doing it, I can tell you and watch your writing and cross the T's and dot the I's for you. But until you're out there actually putting it into action, you don't know. There's a piece that comes from doing the work clinically, including just an intake. There's a training that comes from the clinical experience that I can't give you in a bubble of training. You got to be out there willing. And it's back to what we said at the top of the hour. You got to be willing to be uncomfortable. You got to be willing to go in not feeling 100% prepared and see how it goes. You got to be willing to be like, you know what? I'm only halfway through the mastery program. Should I be even attempting this? Yes. With safety. Obviously, that's the implied, with safety. Should I be attempting this? Yeah, because you don't know until you try. You got to be out there trying. You got to try to do an intake and look at the clock and go, oh shit, I have 15 minutes left. Okay, how did this happen and what do I do about it? You can't troubleshoot that beforehand on paper. You got to be in the experience realizing, oh my goodness, for this type of client, I need this much time. I didn't know that before. And before I got here, I didn't know it. I had an idea, but I didn't know. I hadn't experienced it yet. There's a knowing that comes from experience. It's different than on paper. Okay, Anna.
So would you then maybe for the first meeting, suggest an hour and a half?
I've done a lot of, I've done all kinds of permutations. And again, we'll walk through that in mastery when we get to our group training, but that's one suggestion. And yeah, until I was there and realized I needed more time, I hadn't even thought about what happens before the first time happens.
Right. I think I realized, and I mean, you've been with me now for some months, so this won't come as a surprise to you. But I think for me, there's that insecurity of making sure that I provide value,
Mhm.
that I give them results. And I hear what Lori said. I mean, with obviously it's cost her and that client because she didn't have proper intake. And I see that in my brain, it's still that thing block of, if I'm spending all this time doing a thorough intake, am I giving them something to leave with that they're going to feel good about?
Mhm.
And, I know that that's just a process for me, but that's where I get stuck, even in the measuring,
Mhm.
like, because I'm not as fast as you. I can't
Right.
do it in 3 minutes, all the measurements. And so I'm like, shit.
Mhm. Okay, so I'm smiling, Anna, because I love this for a lot of reasons. First is, you're right. In order to get faster, you've got to practice. I can't teach you how to practice when I'm teaching. Practice is practice, learning is learning. So back to implementation. If you want to be faster at measurements, you got to practice, and then you'll get faster, and then you will be as fast as me, as you said, right? So you already answered part of that. The other piece is that I love that you just said providing value. We literally have a class on that coming up as well, value for value. So you're right on time. And I love that for you. And what I'll say is that, again, if you go in blind or you go in rushed and harried, is that value? No. So then that's not the solution either. There's some other piece that's coming that you get to learn about how to provide value and what that actually looks like. So you are in this beautiful way, Anna. You're always like exactly where you need to be, one step ahead of the training, which lets me know that this is a perfect track for you. The mastery track is perfect for you. We've talked about that before. Today, we're in our Tuesday training, and I want to just be thoughtful to the others who aren't in mastery, although I want you all to be in mastery. Come join us in mastery. It's super fun in there. Today, we're not going to answer those questions for you, but I promise you, Anna, that they're coming because it's literally in the curriculum. Okay, so you're right where you need to be. Trust that and let that be your takeaway from today. I'm right on time. Instead of in the what I didn't offer or the glass half empty or I'm not providing enough. Instead, tell yourself the story. I'm right on time. I'm right on time. I'm right on time. Because I promise you, you are. Okay. So we're all learning as we go. And that's why you're here, which just, you guys, the fact that you guys show up every week and are like open vessels and eager and willing just lights me up because I know that means you're taking this material and you're going out in the world and you're doing amazing stuff with it. And that gives me purpose and also hope because I'm here to raise the caliber of our industry. So I want to acknowledge each of you for being a huge, gigantic piece of that. I literally am feeling that happening in real time because of your presence and your contribution. So thank you for being here and asking all that you're asking and having the questions and being willing to bring them to the table so that we can all explore them. Any other
Real quick,
questions? Yeah.
just real super quick. So that client, the client that we're talking about that I was like, oh, I missed it. He left saying thank you to me. He left saying thank you. This was valuable. Like now I have some clarity around what's going on in my body, whereas before he didn't. So did I resolve it? Nope. But did I offer him something that he didn't have? He's 53 up until his life right now. Yes. So there was value. Yeah. It's funny what we decide, what we choose to think of as value, right?
Perfectly said. Perfectly said. Yep. Structuring what you're offering as value and deciding what you're offering and whether or not it is value is old. There's a new way to look at it. I promise. So thank you for sharing that, Lori. That's great. Again, it's clinical experience. I could tell you all I can tell you, but until you experience it from your clients and looking at the time and what you did in that hour, you'll only hear my words, but you won't have the experience of that's actually the truth. I love that. Thank you. Any other questions before we dive in? Gary, did you have a question?
Just quickly. And this is from ignorance of not knowing what's in the master class, but it would appear that trying to formulate an verbal intake form every time is not the best way to use your time. There must be something written that you guys have, key points to look at, timelines, I don't know what, but that so that there's a check. And if there was something like that, then Lori wouldn't have missed some of what she missed. So I'm just that's my question.
Yeah, I love the question. And my friend, boy, wouldn't that be so easy to just hand them a sheet and get back all the data? And I'm telling you, in 31 years, it does not work that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
It did. Pass it up.
I wish it did, but it does not work that way. In fact, and this is also part of the training that we do in the training I was just sharing with Anna about, that's coming up in Mastery and in 2 Thursdays from now. I used to spend a lot of time editing and rewriting and rewording the intake form. I have probably as many iterations as I have years in practice trying to get this information, right? So I'm absolutely telling you from experience, is a waste of time. Because what would happen is I'd be 2/3 of the way through the session or half the way through the session, and the client would say just something in conversation, which is different than the, oh my gosh, I forgot to tell you XYZ. That's different. That's a new awareness. You created an awareness in their body, memories flooded in, and then they share with you. I'm not talking that. I'm talking just in general, just talking, because we're not doing full body massage where the lights are dim and the tone is quiet. I'm engaged with them. And they'll just randomly share, oh yeah, well, back when I broke my foot. You broke your foot? When did you break your foot? Well, 6 years ago, and I was in crutches, and I this and I that. I didn't know you broke your foot. It's not on your intake form. Oh, I didn't think it was relevant, because on the intake form, I was only talking about my back pain.
Yeah.
Right, but the way you walk affects your back, my friend. But they don't know the functional implication, and they don't know the functional anatomy. So they don't think, when they're thinking, this is the key, when they're thinking and giving you data, they're in thinking and giving you data. They're not openly talking and letting you hear things, like your ears are like catcher's nets when they're talking, and you're hearing things that they don't know are relevant, but they're saying them for a reason, right? So the written intake doesn't work, Gary. I wish it did. So we do get to work on the timing and how efficiently you can get through a SOAP charting experience, the subjective part of it, so that you can move on to the rest of the session for sure. And I'm talking again for, complex pain. I'm not talking about for massage, general massage. Are there any main issues I need to know about? Like, do you have numbness in your feet from, diabetes, something, right? Or do you have rods in your spine? Like, I'm not talking high level things that you need to know before you do manual work with someone. I'm talking about, you're there to resolve a problem.
Right.
It's a different type of intake. I wish it was that simple. Yeah.
Okay.
And I could go on and on about that, by the way. So thank you for asking, and I'm going to type it.
Thank you for your 30 years of experience. It saved all of us a lot of problems.
Oh, I so appreciate you saying that. I do say that a lot. I'm like, you guys, it's the greatest hits. I'm telling you, I will save you time if you just believe me.
Yeah.
Please do it this way, Yeah, thank you, Gary, for acknowledging. I appreciate you. Go ahead, Rhonda.
So when I see a patient for the first time, I give them paperwork to fill out. One of the pages I give them is an empty body form and let them color in what the areas are. And then I go through my intake form that covers all the different body parts, covers the environment they live in, covers who they've seen, covers accidents, injuries, sports injuries, recent or past. I give an hour to all that in a first appointment, and my first appointment is 3¼ hours long.
Whoa.
And I charge a little bit less for the 3¼ hours because we're talking and I'm not doing all hands-on treatment. But people seem to like that, and it seems to work for me.
Okay. Great. Did you have a question there, or you were just sharing an idea for us to consider?
Well, I was just sharing what how I cover some of those bases.
Okay, cool. Anybody else? All right. Lori, let's take us back. take us back to where we came from.
Getting sweaty again. Oh
Does
man.
that-
And you were,
Does anybody remember Lori's case study?
I pulled out my notes.
Does anybody remember where we left off?
Mm.
I kind of feel like Cheryl, honestly, I saw your face in my mind a few times this week. I was like, I feel like Cheryl wants the answer. I feel like she was I don't know. I was totally putting thoughts in your mind, but I saw your face a few times this week in my mind.
Well, we all want the answer, right? No doubt. Just reading back through my notes, I really haven't had a lot of thought time on it throughout the week, but
Okay.
and I usually try to take some time, but I didn't this week. 52-year-old man, I believe, came in with calf pain on the medial side, left leg. He was having a tough time leading with his left leg going down the stairs, correct? It was an ego workout, non-running. He was working upper body, and in between doing 20 jacks at about number 800, he felt the pain in his calf. He's just on the cusp of hypermobile, right?
Yep.
He self-diagnosed himself with turf toe on his left foot, or second and third toe, right? He's had surgery in the past on L4, L5. It was a herniation, it sounded like.
Yeah, he called it micro
Disectomy.
Yeah.
In 2004, which happened from squats, bad form squats, and a painting project he was working on, right? Please, if I leave anything out, correct me if I'm.
I love the painting project. Yes, painting project.
The left side into his glutes hurts when he's running. That was after the initial injury that he came to you for, I believe. Like, did he try running again, but his left side into his glutes hurts?
Yeah, there's the whole timeline thing, right? The question, I'm trying to remember if he let me just look real quick here to see if by chance.
By chance what, Lori?
I was just looking that by chance, if I had wrote that down, like what he did when he has left side pain, if that was before or after his 800 plus jumping jacks, I don't know.
We also know that he has, his head is forward, C curve, so he leans. He's a tall man, 6'2", and he's a lawyer. That's what I have.
Damn, girl, your notes are stars, Cheryl.
Yeah.
And he likes kittens and puppies and pizza. I mean, I don't know, right? Yeah.
And then I wrote something about plantar flexion, but I don't know what that was, what that pertained to, like when he plantar flexes.
Oh, when he was the jumping jacks.
We were talking about the action.
Talking about the action of the foot, of the ankle.
Right. Okay.
I think that's where that was.
And the last notes that I have is chronology. Is that the right word? I think I'm saying that wrong. Timeline matters.
Timeline matters.
Yep, we spent a minute there last week. Yep, timeline matters. Awesome, Cheryl. Thank you for giving us the run through. For those of us who weren't here last week, thank you for taking such great notes. So a couple things I heard in there that I want to just emphasize before we get into the solution of it, and to also further answer your question, Cheryl, about the masterclass. We talked last week with this client that you just ran us through. We talked last week about the function at the ankle and in his legs that may have caused this muscle pain. So the question on the table from Lori was, what type of tightness is this muscle? What type of tightness is happening in this part of the body? And we started to unravel, well, what muscle is it? And what was the muscle up to when the pain happened? That's what maximizing the lever system means. What's the muscle that's doing the job, and what is the job? And is the job able to be done? Because if not, it'll equal pain. But if the lever system's functioning the way it's designed to function, there won't be calf pain at the end. So that's the distinction in that masterclass. That's what I mean about like a solo topic, and we dive in there. And so we started to unwrap that with this client last week. Well, what is happening in the jumping jacks? The jumping jacks are relevant. So what's happening in the jumping jacks? And then after the jumping jacks, he still got the pain that he felt at jumping jack 800. What's the pain? What caused the pain? If we know what caused the pain, we can start to figure out what the type of tightness is. Otherwise, we're just guessing. We're guessing what the type of tightness is. And luckily for us, we've already spent a month on muscle tightness. So y'all are like, pause before I just stretch everything. Yay for us. Yes, we don't want to just stretch something if it's tensiled, because we could make it worse. So we need to figure out what the type of tightness is for this chap. And that's what we were starting to dissect using the lever system to figure that out. And that's, I believe, where we left off last week.
It is. Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So I had you guys envisioning in your head what's actually happening joint wise when somebody's in a jumping jack, from the start to the air and to the landing. What was happening there? And that's why we had the plantar flexion.
The jump off, landing.
The jump off, the push off, and the landing. And so then we were at, well, what muscle does that? And we had a handful of them, and we found a commonality between all of them. And then we were right at, okay, well, what happened? What happened in the push off, in the air part, and in the landing part that wasn't kosher? Because if it was kosher, he wouldn't have landed in pain. It would be easy to say, oh, well, come on, Gina, it was 800 jumping jacks. That's what caused it. Okay, but then why wasn't it bilateral? The fact that it was unilateral means there's an issue, that it's not from the activity, because both legs were doing the activity. Only one of them took the hit. How come? All right. So what do you guys think? Where are you at now? Remember the muscles that we ID'd last week? Do you remember the action that we had them in? Yeah, let's review that. That's helpful to always go back to the anatomy that you know. Go back to what you do know before you get into when it all went wrong. So what do we know about the anatomy in a jumping jack?
Well, we determined the joint action of plantar flexion of the ankle on push off and coming down. So the muscles that do that, if the calf muscles, gastrocnemius and soleus, plantaris,
and
peroneus longus.
Nope.
No, not that. I'm just looking at my book. I'll rattle off.
What was the fourth? Yeah, go ahead.
The fourth one in my book is peroneus longus. Then it says peroneus. The peroneus is brevis, tib posterior, tibialis posterior.
The tib posterior is what we talked about last week.
That's
we
what
didn't
it
bring.
like.
Yeah, we didn't bring in the peroneals last week. And
And
so here's the squirreling that happens with muscles, right? The way the lever system works, and the way I like to explain it is one muscle is doing the job, one muscle is responding to the job by lengthening. But the true way the body's designed is it's never one guy by himself.
Right.
So as soon as we get into, well, then it could be that one, it could be that one, it could be that one, it could be that one. We're 10 muscles down the road and we're lost. We're like, wait, what was the question I was answering again? So I like to teach, like, know the lever system, the main guy and the guy responding, and then do like the closest trio.
Okay.
Like stay close. Rather than every muscle is connected to every muscle, and then you're going to start listing off all 600, and then what are you doing? Wait, then what's the agenda, right? So stay close. So I didn't mean to say, no, peroneals don't do that job. What I was saying no to is we didn't bring that up last week. We didn't bring that up last week. And in my experience with peroneals, while they do participate in that action, they have a much bigger job that's sort of specific to them. that I would lean towards them for that more than I would for plantar flexion, for example.
Okay.
Okay. So with plantar flexion, it's like, these are the main guys, the top one, the top two, and then maybe one or two after that. And I'm going to call it a day and just see what I can glean from that small sack of muscles.
Oh, I see. You know what, Gina? I'm looking in the proniuses now that we affectionately call them that.
I think it's peroneals.
Yeah, like
I think.
perennials, only perennials.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says it assists. It is, yeah, it's one of the helpers. Yeah, got it.
Yep, synergists.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yep, thank you.
Because no guy goes alone. We're designed to
No.
be interdependent, my loves. We don't actually have lone wolfing in our physiology. So side note, if you tend to be like, I got it, I don't need any help. Actually, that's not the way you're designed. You're designed to work in teams and couples and partnership and things like that. So that's why we're all here together, learning it as we go together. That's how we're designed. Okay.
So are the three, the gastroc, soleus, and posterior tibialis?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when we talked about plantaris, because that's worthy to bring up, because it actually shares the same tendon as gastroc and soleus. So if it shares the same tendon, the tendon is what is responsible for the force that's happening in that muscle action. So you might as well include him because they're using the same tendon to do the job.
Yep.
Does that make sense to you guys? When you're trying to figure out, like, how do I focus on a muscle? Why would I focus on that muscle? Great. Okay, so we had those 4 muscles. And by the way, plantaris as a muscle by himself, he's not that big of a hitter. It's the relationship that he has with the tendon that makes him stand out on this list. But as a muscle by himself, I mean, look at him, guys. He's tiny. Tiny can be mighty. Don't get me wrong. Tiny can be mighty. However, if we're talking about like who's doing most of the lift off in the push off, it wouldn't be plantaris by himself.
Okay.
We're including him because of his shared attachment with the tendon.
Oh yeah, he's real tiny.
He's tiny but mighty.
And mighty.
Mm-hmm.
He's a helper.
He is, exactly.
Got it.
Okay, so now that we've recalled the joint action and the muscles that are working, we're still solving what's happening in one calf and why didn't it happen in the other? What's happening in the one calf and what do I do about it? So what do you guys think now?
I wonder if it's how the push off and the landing on the one leg is different.
What about it? What about it could be different? I love this. What about it could be different?
Well, we know he's had past injury.
Which one?
The herniation, possibly.
Mm-hmm. Yep. What else do we know about
the
that?
Self-diagnosed turf toe.
Yeah. And whether it's an accurate diagnosis, we do know that there's something different in the 2 feet.
Yeah.
Right.
What's different? What's different?
The little toe is looking like whatever a turf toe looks like. It's not like this, it's like this. So he's trying to push off like without all of the ball of the foot, the toes.
So is his feet actually, I mean, when you looked at his feet, was his toe curled under or something?
No, it didn't. It wasn't that noticeable. It looked like, you know, when you grip with your toes, it looked a little grippy.
More so than the other foot?
Mm-hmm.
Was it like which toes? I mean, you did mention second and third toe.
Yeah, like the middle ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they looked like a little more like contracted or tight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what's the significance of that?
Well, he's not using the full length of those muscles in the toe.
And even when he comes
even
down.
with walking.
Yeah.
Exactly. He's not using the fullness of the muscles available in that structure. And that structure is the part that is doing push off and landing.
Yep.
Right.
So I think it was last year or 2 years ago, our spring masterclass, was on functional anatomy and the formula for functional anatomy. It's always alignment, strength, function. In order to fix a muscle problem, a functional problem, a joint action, it must be aligned first. You can't just go after a symptom and rub it out. You can't just go after a symptom and stretch it or put a hot pack on it. Doesn't work, guys. And I know you know that. That's why you're here. But I'm just stating the obvious. We know it doesn't work. The why it doesn't work is because the joint must be aligned first. The body part that's being asked to function, to move, must be aligned first. Bunched up toes are not aligned. They're bundled. They're not aligned. They're bundled. If they're bundled, the function is impaired. It's just the way it works. So we already know that there's a difference between one foot and the other. If there's a difference in one foot, there's a difference in that ankle. And he's already given us clues that that side is already a problem. So was it the 800 jumping jacks? Yeah, that's a lot. But he had that problem going into the jumping jacks.
Yeah.
On that side.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. I love all this. So I'm looking at my book, at the anatomy book, and I'm looking at flexor digitorum longus.
Yeah.
So that seems to have the same attachment points, as well as it actually runs under the foot and goes to all of those 4 toes minus the big toe. So would that have something to do because of the turf toe, whatever that looks like? Those toes are connected. I mean, yeah, so that muscle is connected to the toes all the way to the ankle and up the tibia. So that could be a contender too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And that's awesome, Christina. And here's how we use our anatomy. How's the body designed? Do you know? Right? That's a rhetorical question. Do you know the body's design? If you don't know the body parts and you don't know how they're designed, it's hard to fix when it goes wrong. You got to know what's there when it does work, like what's supposed to be working. And then when you recognize, oh, this is how it's supposed to be working, this is how it went wrong, now what do I do about it? What do you do about it? And that's usually where the questions start. What do I do about X? Instead of, well, what caused X? And that's really the difference, I think, between having a method versus a technique. I could tell you to put your thumb here, put your elbow there, add a massage gun here, there, or whatever. That's a technique. But the method is like solving it back to what caused the problem. How do we get back there? And that's how I like to resolve it, because then I know it's resolved. So we already know that there's a difference between the right and left foot. Christina, you're pointing out, well, what muscle is possible? The next thing we do is, what's the design? Is it the flexor digitorum that's in contractile stress, or is it the other muscles that are not? And you get to figure that out with the person, right? If one side of the lever, this is back to why we're doing this masterclass again at the end of the month. If the lever's not balanced, it's either that one side's overworking or the other side isn't working. And you get to figure that out with the person you're working on. You can't do that blind. You got to figure it out with the body. There's different implications for it, for either. Is it one side working or the other side not working? And the implications are similar to what we talked about with tension. Is this side hypertonic, or is this side not doing its job? If the side that's not doing his job is the problem, I need to start activating that muscle to contract. But if there's hypertonicity, I don't want to activate more contraction. There's already too much of that. So it goes back to using the muscle tightness and understanding the design of the lever system to be able to resolve it. Okay. Y'all got very quiet. Was that too much? What happened? Y'all thinking? Okay.
I got hung up on hypertone.
Oh, a new word.
A new word.
So contractile. Let's call it contractile.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That's what I figured.
Too much tone is not exactly like contractile stress, but well, for the illustration of what I was just talking about, let's use that. Hypertonicity could be also, you could use that to describe turgor too. It just means there's contraction. It's not the absence of contraction that's present, which means very different approaches to resolve the problem. Okay, so what do you think then if he's not, if he's got a second and third toe that's not aligned, and we don't know yet, and that's okay. We don't know yet if it's too much contraction on the bottom of a foot or not enough contraction on the muscles on the top of the foot to balance out the lever in those joints. We don't know that yet. And for now, I'm okay with that. Do we all see that he's not using the fullness of that foot in the absence of that balance lever? Okay, perfect. So if he's not using the whole of that foot, how would that change the jumping jack?
It's just off balance.
Yeah,
He's not pushing. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's not a power, right? The power isn't one
Pushing.
side isn't going to be exactly.
Yeah.
I would think there would be some compensation on the other side to complete the movement, but that's just a guess.
Yep, there could be compensation on the other side. There
Also
could
the
be
landing.
what's that?
Even,
push off
I mean,
the land.
the landing on that is gonna put more pressure on the wrong joints and the wrong muscles. They're not doing their job.
Yeah, exactly. They're not doing their job, and these are all, you guys are thinking it through, and I love it. And the way I teach is I want you to, what does that mean off balance? What does that mean not doing their job? Meaning what is actually happening instead? So, and that's just rhetorical. It's just part of how I want you guys to continue to think. So, so what we do know about muscles do contraction. Muscles also pad and protect. Muscles also create power. So in the absence of protection and power, the action, the function, the last of our formula is still happening. He's still doing jumping jacks with both feet. What's the implication of that? Yes, compensation, but what specifically? Yes, compensation. Yes. What specifically is being compensated then if he doesn't have access to the bottom of that foot and he's using it for power and push off and needs it for protection on the way back down? What does the body create instead?
Injury.
Yeah, what specifically in that part of the body? What kind of injury? Yeah, so I love, I know you guys are all deep in thought. One of the thoughts that I asked myself early on, and I continue to ask myself, is based on the body will do whatever you ask it to do. Body will do whatever you ask it to do, even if it's a stupid idea. The body will do whatever you ask it to do. It's actually your buddy. It's like your best buddy. It'll do anything it's like, you want to jump? We'll jump. Sure. Even if it doesn't have full capacity to do that, even at the risk of pain and injury, your body, you want to enjoy the jump? We'll jump. Fine. We'll deal with whatever we deal with later, right? It's that kind of a best buddy. Your ride and die, right? So if the body will do whatever you ask it to do, and it doesn't have the setup to do the thing I'm asking it to do, how does it get the job done?
Well, other muscles kick in that are not meant to do the job.
Exactly. And that's where I get to solve the problem. Meaning this problem of the symptom, the real solving of the problem is to get it back to being able to do the job.
Right.
So the symptom that this chap came in with was calf tension. And our original question was, well, what kind of stress is that muscle under? And how do I stretch it or do I contract it? We get to resolve that for sure. But how that muscle became symptomatic is really solving the problem.
Right.
Solving how that calf became whatever type of tension it was, the chief complaint. Solving that is solving the problem. Otherwise, we just eradicated the symptom, but it's primed and ready for the next time we do a jumping jack or anything else that requires the same use of that foot.
So the problem was the turf toe?
The problem is what caused the turf toe.
Right, what caused the turf toe? Yeah.
Do you guys see that? By the way, does that make sense to you? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because he doesn't have, full push off, just like a gait. I mean, he's not able to have full push off. And it's interesting because I'm just, what Cheryl was saying on the hit list, his left side glute also hurts when he runs. So obviously it's transferring all the way up.
Yeah, his left
Exactly.
side body. Mhm.
Yep, exactly. And so for those of you in mastery, you could probably start predicting what kind of measurements that would show up with too. So we could fix the measurements, and we should, and the measurements are also symptomatic of something else that caused it.
Mhm.
So you could align measurements and they leave aligned, and then they come back misaligned, and you align them again and you're still not solving it. If you're doing rinse and repeat, we're still not solving it. You want to keep going back to the whole genesis of the problem. And the way to do that is by using your applied functional anatomy. How does the body work? In this activity, how does the body work? All the parts there available to do the job. And if they're available to do the job, did they? And therein lies the solution.
Okay, so now what do you do?
You tell me. I love the question. Cheryl's like, let's get some results, please. What do you do?
Well,
What do you do?
we
What do you do,
haven't-
Laurie?
Well, right. Well, I haven't resolved the why of the self-diagnosed turf toe.
Mhm.
Because
So now
that's,
you got to determine which muscles are either overworking or underworking.
Mhm.
How do you do that? How would you test for that? What's your next step?
How would you address footwork, Lori?
how would I address footwork in the turf toe? I don't know.
Wouldn't you, Lori, wouldn't you try to go back to hashtag feet and see if all those parts of hashtag feet are available to him?
I'm only pausing on that because with that, I'm thinking what would create the turf toe. Yeah, it is a process of, I guess, elimination, right? Would I start with head? Yeah, right.
I guess maybe you would get to find out which parts of the hashtag feet he can't do.
Mhm.
And maybe that might give you an explanation or at least a contributing factor to the turf toe, which I have no idea what that is. I've never heard of it,
I know.
but I'll be looking it up.
Yeah,
Yeah, we decided, Anna, that he's self-diagnosed because when Cheryl looked it up, it's specific only to the big toe, but his big toe was fine. So we definitely know it was self-diagnosed because he addressed it to the two other toes.
So it's probably not even turf toe.
Right. And the diagnosis itself is sort of irrelevant because we can
Mhm.
see that there's an imbalance in those joints.
Right,
If there's an imbalance in those joints, then we know that something's not contracting or something's not lengthening, and that's the problem, right? Whether it's what we call it is sort of irrelevant, but the fact that it's happening in that lever is a problem. We just all walked through that. Y'all are like, oh my God, it would totally change the jumping jacks. Those two toes not being aligned, problem. It affects the muscles, it affects the function, it makes the jumping jacks harder. We already figured that out. So what it's called is irrelevant.
right.
The function around it is what you want to see.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you Cheryl, go for it.
Well, I was just thinking, so do we give those toes the job that they're supposed to be doing and see if they can do it? And if they can't, then we would know then that function is not happening. So those muscles are either probably overworking or underworking. If they're not doing it, they're underworking, right? So we give it the function that those two toes are designed to do.
Yeah,
exactly. Does that make sense?
It does. You bring that body part back to alignment. Any body part, you bring it back to alignment. And if it can't do that alignment, which it's designed to do, then you intervene. And for mastery practitioners, that means functional assist. You intervene with why it can't go back to its original design and get it there. In this particular chap's case, we know that the muscles that create alignment in those toes, as Christina called out for us, are on the bottom of the foot, but all the muscles in the foot start up at below the knee. They all run up there. That if we know our anatomy, we know that. So as soon as we see something in the foot, or as soon as we see something in the ankle, or as soon as we see something in the calf, you got to think both. You got to think tibial tuberosity to big toe and everything in between, because that's the muscle band. That's where the muscles live. The muscles that work the toes that are supposed to look like piano toes live up in the calf. By the time they're in the foot, they're mostly tendons. There are muscles in the foot for sure. The ones that work the digits are up in the calf. So we know that okay, so his symptom in his calf, but I see something misaligned in his toe. Those two things are related. I don't know yet if it's a chicken, which is the chicken and which is the egg, but I know they're related. I know they're related. And in order to solve the calf pain, I've got to solve the alignment in the digits and restore the function, then there won't be pain. And I know we're at the top of the hour, so I'm going to say this and then let us wrap for the day. The last thing that I want to share, now I lost it. Because I looked at the time and I got all nervous.
You said align the digits.
This is what I was going to say. This exploration that we just did on the anatomy and how the anatomy works is the key distinction between solving the problem with a complete subjective intake and hearing that he has a left glute thing and a stare issue and the turf toe, versus if a client just came in and said, my calf is cramping and it happened after 800 jumping jacks, and we roll our eyes about, oh my God, how ridiculous 800 jumping jacks is, and then just go in and manually work the calf. We might get lucky. If the muscles in the calf are under contractile stress, we might get lucky and release that tension and he might feel fine, but he's going to still leave with turf toe or his two toes curled. He's still going to leave with what caused that. Right. So I just want to emphasize and highlight for us here that we're actually solving more complex problems by understanding the connection to the symptoms and the rest of the body, rather than just hearing the symptom and going for it.
Yeah.
Don't take impulsive action toward a symptom. You won't solve it. You might solve some of the sensation of the symptom, but not what caused it. And that's what we're here for, to really create long-lasting results for folks. Okay, so that wraps us up. Thank you for staying extra. I know that I continue to roll over. I feel like we all should, I feel like we all should take a day together and just hash it out, because we have so much to explore together. But we will meet again here next Tuesday, live again, noon Eastern. Thank you so much for all of your contribution and for showing up. I hope there was value for here. Was there value here for you today? Did you get value today?
So good.
A lot? Okay, great, good. That makes me feel super.
Are we gonna solve this problem next week? What we do about it?
We just did.
We just did.
What do we do about it?
Stay tuned, because every single case study takes us a month.
I
So
hear you. I'm
don't
seeing
rush
that. I
it.
love it though. I love it though.
Don't rush it.
No,
So we all get to think about it.
you all get to think about it. Yeah, for sure. And I will tell you this, in a live event like this on Tuesday trainings, when we're, broadcasting out into the ethers, I am not going to tell you what to do with a particular client. Not only is it unethical for me, it's probably also illegal. So I'm not going to tell you, go do this, but I'm going to tell you how to come up with what you should do.
Yeah.
And then you go do your tool, you go do your technique, you go do your expertise with that person. Okay. But as long as I'm heading you towards where the answer lies, I feel like my mission here is accomplished.
In the toes.
Okay. Awesome. You guys, thank you so much for showing up. I appreciate you more than you know. I can't wait for next Tuesday. In the meantime, continue to do great work in the world. I hope that you guys will reserve your seat in the masterclass. I really want to pour into you. Oh yeah, I really do. And whether I see you there or next week, have a great week in between. Bye for now.